Hello, welcome back to these videos where we learn English every day. Of course, brought to you by Apple Pie English School in Japan. So today we're going to talk about, this is part of my initials one, where I talked about, I think, TOEIC, TOEFL, Aiken, different English tests. And today I'm going to talk about different initials for famous English schools. In Japan, for example, if you ever want to come to Japan or if you ever study in Japan, I've worked at many of them. Today we're going to talk about ECC. So before I start, don't forget to give us a like below and comment and subscribe so that we know that you're enjoying these videos and you'll get more of them. So of course today we're going to talk about ECC and basically my experience with them. This is of course a pamphlet for ECC Junior, but I've done a lot to work with them over the years, and so I've worked with, of course, Nova, GEOS, Aeon, and ECC, four of the biggest English schools in Japan. So I'll talk about my experience with them and kind of their history. So ECC is the oldest English school in Japan. It started in 1962. So while it's the oldest in Japan, it's not the oldest in the world. The oldest in the world, based on the Eikaiwa style system, the English conversation system, the oldest would be Berlitz, which I think started out of France in America, but they were trying to learn French, I think. But so that started in like 1860, so it's like 100 years after that in Japan, ECC started. And they started in Osaka, Maine. So fast forward now, more than 50 years, right? 40, 60 years now. So eventually it became incorporated, I think around 1975. And now they have 1,000, mostly in Osaka, some in Tokyo, but they have 1,300 employees, and they have about 3,500, I think, English teachers, both Japanese and foreigners, mostly Japanese. And then what's most famous about them in Japan is they have home teachers, where they teach from their house. While there's 3,500 teachers in their normal English schools, there's 15,000 teachers around Japan teaching from their house, where it's hit or miss how good they are. I'll explain that in a little bit. But first I'll explain about my experience with them. So of course, I worked with them in many different capacities. I did their kindergarten program where I taught in Saitama and Gunma. I visited kindergartens for them. This is actually what that is. This is a kindergarten visitation program. You can see almost 10 years ago now, this one. But I worked with them for several years doing that. I also was a trainer. I was the only person in my prefecture, in my state, that trained, outside of Tokyo, that trained Gunma teachers, which is where I'm located. So I was the only one that they would let me train them. The office, one of the main offices they have in Tagasaki, my city, they would ask me to train the teachers, not in English, but how to teach English, how to prepare English, how to teach their lessons. So as my English school grew, I was too busy to keep doing that program with them, so that's why I don't do it anymore, because my English school grew. But I used to do the kindergarten visitation with them. I did the summer events. I did their test. So they have kind of an Aiken test specifically inside there where they ask foreigners. I think the parents probably think the foreigners work for the school or work for ECC mainly, but they don't. All of the foreigners that come for those programs come from outside. They're part-time people. So they're in Japan called freakers. They come in and they evaluate the students. So once a year I would do that, evaluate the students in an Aiken style speaking test, and I would do the summer programs where we do events and games and stuff, and Halloween and Christmas and events, stuff like that. And in this one, visiting kindergartens. So, but basically, how they're designed and how most schools in Japan are designed is based on their system, where you have you teach English through English. So of course, I don't need to use, or I shouldn't use, Japanese inside the classroom. So that's how it's based on the Berlitz system, but that's how it's designed, of course. So you learn as you go. So even with the little kids, eventually they'll learn. Like my kids, a lot of my students, you can see the magnets on the board. These are all students' names. Here, for example, and over here, they actually can understand what I'm saying and they can respond to me in full English. So while I'm speaking full English, and they'll get it. So it's based on that system. So, but one thing I want to mention about home teachers, which I mentioned earlier, is I used to do that training, and I've taught, and even some of my adult students later, when they became mothers, they became ECC teachers as well. So I know a lot of their levels, and it's hit or miss that probably junior high and high school teachers speak better than ECC teachers, I would say. So some ECC teachers, maybe 10% speak really good, maybe 30% speak okay. I would say 60%, almost two-thirds, aren't great at great speaking at all. And it's, I guess, the same as Juku in Japan. So that's why I said earlier that their system for home teachers is sink or swim. So if you have enough money to join the program, then you can be an ECC teacher. So can you pay as a franchise fee? Okay, there you go. And because I even asked them, the headquarters, why is there such a range of your teachers? Don't you do an English test? No. Don't you check their English education? No. What's happening? Oh, well, they just pay us and sink or swim. If they're good teachers and speak well, then they'll go up and they'll gain more students and they'll be successful. If they don't, then they'll sink. Of course, they won't be able to swim if they don't have English ability, or if they can't teach, or they can't market. Then they'll sink. So, of course, that's something to keep in mind if you ever come to Japan, or if you're thinking about it. Yes. So they don't register. Jukus do this too. Jukus are cram schools in Japan. They don't require a certain level of ability to be a teacher. So that's just something to keep in mind. But I loved it because it's very busy, and if you want a Japanese teacher to teach your children, then probably it's the biggest in Japan. But I would recommend, of course, my school is all foreigners teaching the kids. I would recommend a native speaker would teach the kids. But some parents prefer they can speak full Japanese with the teacher. So in that case, I can see the benefits of such a program. Okay, thank you. I hope that explains well what ECC is, or ECC Junior. In case you ever come to Japan, or if you're in Japan, or if you're a Japanese person watching this. If you have any questions or comments, please give them below. Again, give us a subscription here. And of course, don't forget to watch these other initial videos. Like I said, I have tests here, or famous English schools here. And over here I have some famous, some popular videos on my website. So until next time, see you tomorrow. Have a good day.